Suave on the track.
Whatever it takes. Alleyway.
Coco, this your season right now.
They won't see me. They won't let me, yeah. I gotta sleep with one eye open, trippin' making me nervous. I take a piss, my hand on the strap. I know the odds wanna murder, I got a feeling, deep my stomach, paranoia, yeah. I won't let them, yeah. They won't see me, yeah. I gotta sleep with one eye open, trippin' making me nervous. I take a piss, my hand on the strap. I know the odds wanna murder, I got a feeling, deep my stomach, paranoia, yeah. I can't let them, yeah. They won't see me, yeah. I put attention, all of my blood, all of my veins. They started with Perky, now that hair run up his veins. You started with serving, now them drugs drove you insane. Started with dealing, I grew up with killers, they taught me the game. I got some niggas that die behind, and that shit won't never the same. I know some niggas that lie behind, and that bullet had his name. Ain't no reason to cry about, cause that shit won't never change. MTF the 4th and P, my niggas can't get out the game. I gotta sleep with one eye open, trippin' making me nervous. I take a piss, my hand on the string. I know the odds wanna murder, I got a feeling, deep my stomach, paranoia, yeah. I won't let them, yeah. They won't see me, yeah. I gotta sleep with one eye open, trippin' making me nervous. I take a piss, my hand on the string. I know the odds wanna murder, I got a feeling, deep my stomach, paranoia, yeah. I can't let them, yeah. They won't see me, yeah.
Lost, see, I glossed to it, shit ain't been the same. Heard the ops talking to the feds, giving names. Who gon' feed my family if they take me out the game? Keep one in the head and one eye open, that ain't change. I'm quick to catch a body. When I shoot, he shoot, I know bro shooting right beside me. Them hollow tips go through the wall and then they hit his body.
All right, man, we're gonna be covering this Young Thug case, man. He's back in court, man. They got so many people out here testifying on my boy. Man, let's get it, man.
Just when you get a second, and when Ms. Rosen also comes back, move your approach.
Yeah.
Or Mrs. Smith. We should step up, Rico.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know what's going on with the sound. Let me double check this and see what's going on real quick. Let me double check the sound to make sure that we're good on you guys' end. Want to make sure that you're good on you guys' end.
Good morning, Mr. Myrick.
All right, there we go. There we go.
Good morning, Mr. Harvey. Good morning, Mr. Nichols. Good morning, Misty Williams, and good morning, Mr. Ryan.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Wright and Mr. Sledge. Ms. Gladden, good morning. Mr. Stevens. Mr. Botts and Mr. Sharp. Good morning, gentlemen, and good morning, Mr. Stillwell. Good morning. Where's Mr. Hoover?
Right
There you are. Oh, you changed positions. All right. Good morning. Good morning, Mr. Hoover. Good morning, Mr. Sumlin. All right, and let's see. I think that's it. I think I've accounted for everyone. Who? Oh, did I miss Mr. Garlington? What position number is he? Let's see. Yeah, I probably skipped. Hold on, let me just see. I get both of them. I probably skipped it. No, I did skip them. Mr. Fleetwood, where are you? Good morning, sir. All right. And then Mr. Garlington? Good morning, sir. All right, anybody I missed? I don't think so. I think we got everybody. All right. Housekeeping. Mr. Johnson and Ms. Rosenwasser, I understand that you have come to an agreement to and would like me to sign an order to dismiss count 35.
Yes, Your Honor, I get that order.
All right, Mr. Johnson, is that acceptable to you, sir?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, we'll go ahead, Ms. Rosenwasser, if you'll go ahead and prepare that, I'll sign, just make sure Mr. Johnson has a chance to look at it. I will sign that otherwise. Okay. Just check that out. Okay, Ms. Rosenwasser and ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Hall's outside?
Investigator Hall is outside.
All right, let's go ahead and bring him in, okay? Investigator Hall, good morning. I'm Judge Glanville. If you could go ahead and please approach the witness stand. Once you get there, if you'd be so kind to turn and face Deputy Lieutenant Gibson to be sworn as a witness, please.
Raise your right hand. You swear to affirm the testimony to the court, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Quentin Hall.
Go.
Can you spell your first name for us, sir?
Quinton.
Hall, common spelling?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Is the witness's microphone on?
Testing. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's on.
Thank you. Investigator Hall, what is your current position?
I'm a gang investigator at the Cobb County Jail.
And how long have you been at that position?
3 years.
Do you have any previous law enforcement experience?
I was the detention officer for the sheriff's office as well before I became an investigator.
And how long were you a detention officer?
Since 2014.
Okay. Does your current job or any of your past jobs involve investigating gang members or classifying gang members at the jail?
My current job.
Can you explain your duties in relation to gang members in your current job?
I interview and classify inmates at the jail. I also investigate incidents at the jail that may or may not be gang related.
And when you say classify inmates, can you explain that?
I interview and see if they are or not gang members.
And why is it important to find out whether or not an inmate is a gang member?
It's for the safety and security of the jail, individuals in the jail, inmates, and sometimes the gang members themselves.
Okay. Have you taken any training classes in gangs?
Yes.
Can you tell me what trainings you've done?
I took a gang investigator certification course through the GGIA, the Georgia Gang Investigator Association, in 2021. I've been to the GGIA gang conferences in 2021 and 2022. I took a gang identification and recognition course through GIPSTIC 2022. I took a basic gang class in the Cobb County Sheriff's Office in 2016.
Okay. And are there ever any handouts or presentations done at those trainings that you can read and learn about?
Yes.
Okay. And have you read anything about classifying gang members or had that presented to you at the trainings?
Yes, I read things on identifying gang members.
Okay. And what work did you need to do to become a gang investigator at the DeKalb County Sheriff's Office?
I had to work in the jail for a certain amount of years to get gang experience to become an investigator.
Can you explain how working at the jail gave you that gang experience?
Being around the inmates every day, basically, and being around their everyday movements.
Okay. Can you describe that a little more? Do you speak to them?
Yes, I speak to them. I work around them. I pass out trays, take them to medical.
Do you ever listen to their jail calls or their communication? Is there anything else like that you do?
I interview inmates. I do cell searches to find different gang
Young
members
Thug
in
is in
cells.
court.
We check mail.
We have a
I'm gonna
sixth
stop you
member
with
of
gang
the
literature.
YSL group
Gang
testifying.
knowledge or information that the inmates might write down about what specific gang they're in.
Can you give me an example of what gang literature might be?
It might have gang lingo, who is above them. They're saying that they will have to say their nickname or things of that nature.
Is that like an instruction manual for being in a gang?
Basically.
Okay. Now, at this point, Your Honor, I'm going to move to admit State's exhibit, and I believe we're on 617. If I may approach the witness.
You can't, is that document already been sworn, already been shown or given in discovery to all defense counsel?
Yes, though, I have it here if anyone.
Okay, all right, then you may approach.
Mr. Harvey, would like to come see it if you'd like to see it, Mr. Harvey. It has been provided in discovery. Absolutely. No, that's not a street one. Yes, it's right discovery. Yes, yeah. If I may approach the witness.
You can, madam.
Yeah. Investigator Hall, do you recognize this document?
Yes,
How do you recognize this document?
I typed it.
What is this document?
My CV resume.
Okay. Does there appear to be any major changes, additions, substitutions, solutions?
No.
Okay, Your Honor, at this point, the state would move to admit State's Exhibit 17 for the purposes of this hearing.
Any objection? All right, state 17 is admitted.
Investigator Hall, and if you need to refer to your CV, I can bring it back to you. Do you know about how many hours of gang training you've had? Would it help me to, would your recollection be refreshed with your CV? I may, Your Honor.
You may.
If you can review that and look up what your recollection is.
It would be over 100 hours.
So I'm sorry, is your recollection refreshed?
Yes,
Okay. How many hours of gang-related training have you had, sir?
that's maybe over 100 hours.
Okay. Now, have you had interactions with gang members personally? They've told you about their gangs and their
Yes,
affiliations at the jail?
yes,
And to clarify, this is the DeKalb County Jail only, is that correct?
yes,
Okay. Based on your experience and your training, are you aware of any gangs that exist in the DeKalb County Jail?
yes,
Excuse me, let me object to the hearsay nature of this. This is both hearsay and there is a confrontation problem with what he is about to tell us. And it's from in custody individuals. It would be to a law enforcement officer and presumptively testimonial.
Your
Madam,
Honor, we are qualifying him as an expert in gangs. It's for the purposes of determining whether he can testify as an expert in gangs in the DeKalb County Jail. So these objections would be right were he to testify at trial, but right now we're trying to show the court that he is an expert in the gangs in the DeKalb County Jail, that he's become aware of them, how he's becoming aware of them, his experience. We're trying to go to the Daubert factors, it doesn't go against the defendants in the same way that a hearsay would at the.
I'll overrule the objection, Mr. Harvey.
As a continuing objection.
Sure.
Please.
Absolutely. Go ahead, madam.
Okay, thank you, Your Honor. And sir, what are the main gangs that you've become familiar with at the DeKalb County Jail?
Bloods, Crips, and GDs.
Are there any specific sects of blood that you become aware of?
Yes,
Can you tell me what they are?
G-Shine, Sex, Money, Murder, Billy.
Okay, and you don't see much of YSL at the DeKalb County Jail, right?
No,
Okay. Do you ever investigate gang members at the DeKalb County Jail?
yes.
And how do you do those investigations?
I listen to phone calls, conduct cell searches to collect items in their cells, such as the gang literature. We check mail, and we also interview inmates.
Okay, and if I can ballpark, about how many gang members in the DeKalb County Jail have you ever interviewed or spoken with?
Over 50.
Okay. How many hours of jail calls have you listened to from gang members within the DeKalb County Jail? If you can ballpark it for us.
Over 1,000.
1,000 hours? Thank you. Do you ever review any social media accounts from people that might get cell phones within the jail?
Yes,
Okay. Is that something that's happened, that people have gotten cell phones in the DeKalb County Jail?
yes.
Okay.
Could you please silence your phones?
Okay. And do you ever look at tattoos on gang members?
Yes,
Are you familiar with different gang tattoos?
yes,
Okay. And do you generally review communications between gang members within the jail as well?
yes,
Okay. Are people ever prosecuted as a result of your investigations?
yes.
And so I know what are some common actions that gang affiliated individuals at the DeKalb County Jail might take that warrant your investigations?
They usually commit physical altercations or assaults together at the jail.
Is that assaults of other rival gang members, or essentially is it gang related?
Or it could be people that's not gang related or other gang members.
So I guess if I'm understanding is that gang members, if put together, may assault others.
Yes.
Is that a lot of the bulk of your investigations?
Yes.
Okay. Now, were you trained how to identify and classify inmates at the DeKalb County Jail that are gang members?
Yes.
Okay. How were you trained? Can you describe that?
We were trained to conduct the interviews to look for certain tattoos that might be an identifier, listening to phone calls, conducting our cell searches, trying to find gang literature in their cells.
Okay. And was that a specific method, or that was just general ways that you were taught to identify them?
Just general ways that I was taught.
Are there certain identifiers that you're trained to look for, and be as specific as you can?
Yes. Through literature, it might be purposeful misspelling where they're crossing out a C and replacing it with a B. Through phone calls, they might replace the C's with B's, or tattoos, it might be a 5-pointed star with the B inside or a flaming B. It just depends on the person.
Is that all for one type of gang that you discussed?
Yes.
What gang is that?
Bloods.
Okay. And do other police forces or agencies attend the trainings that you went to as well?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I know you said you were particularly aware of the Bloods gang at the DeKalb County Jail.
Yes.
Are you aware of the sex money murder gang at the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes.
Have you ever classified inmates as being members of the sex money murder gang?
Yes.
What are ways that you have classified? What are certain indicators if you're classifying someone as a sex money murder member?
They might have a tattoo that says Pete Boy, is reference to Pistol Pete, who's over the sex money murder Bloods. They might have something that says Blazer, where that's part of a saying of them, or we might find also gang literature in their cells where it just flat out says sex money murder.
Okay. Now, are you aware of have you had interactions with sex money murders at sex money murder members at the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes.
Okay. Ballpark about how many members have you spoken with or associates?
Maybe over 20.
Okay. And are you aware if there's any leadership positions within the sex money murder gang at the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes.
Okay. And how have you determined who might be a leader of the sex money murder organization at the DeKalb County Jail?
Through phone calls that the inmates make.
Can you kind of describe what might be in those phone calls to lead you to your conclusions?
We might hear inmates say whoever the person is over this is running things as far as murder in the jail.
Okay, so when you say running things as far as murder in the jail, what does that phrase mean to a layperson that might not understand that?
They're the person that they have to answer to before anything happens in the jail. As far as the gang.
Okay, so if I'm understanding, before someone is harmed in the jail, they have to go to a leadership position and confirm?
Yes.
Has that been your understanding from your past investigations?
Yes.
Okay. Now, I also want to ask you, before you became a gang investigator, were you aware of any of this stuff we've talked about today? Was this something you just knew about? Or have you learned about it?
I knew a basic gang knowledge, but I learned through experience of being an investigator.
Okay. So there's certain things that you've learned through your training and experience that someone else might not know. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
What are some of the specific things that you've learned that somebody off the street or me who isn't a gang investigator might not know immediately?
The lingo on some of the numbers that they might use, like 27 might stand for BG, which is blood gang, or just some of the lingo that they might say to try to throw people off.
What's examples of lingo? So you said 27 and
27 would be blood gang for certain people, or they might say change the C or B, or it'd be like I'm bull, or something where, or instead of cat, bat, that is something of that nature.
Okay. Now, are you aware of an individual by the name of Cordarius Dorsey?
Yes.
Was he an inmate at the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes.
Were you able to determine his position were you able to classify him when he was at the DeKalb County Jail?
I didn't do his classification, but he was classified at the jail.
What was he classified as?
Sex, money, murder, blood.
Okay, and were you aware of his status within that organization at the jail?
Yes.
What was that status?
We heard through phone calls that Mr. Dorsey was over the sex, money, murder, bloods at the jail at one point in time.
Okay, does that mean he was in a leadership position?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how do you know, beyond just what you find in their cells if someone's associated with sex, money, murder at the DeKalb County Jail?
Through phone calls, through their interviews of them saying and just investigating through phone calls.
Okay. Now, how might gang affiliated inmates show support for one another within the jail?
It could be putting money on phones or their commissary.
And when you say putting money on, what does that mean?
Putting money on their accounts.
Okay. Is that a way to show allegiance or affiliation with a gang?
It could possibly be.
Okay. And have you also investigated any conflicts within the gangs between the gangs at the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes.
Okay. And what sort of things might happen when there's a conflict between gang members at the DeKalb County Jail?
Physical altercations.
Okay. And is that when you become involved as the gang investigator?
Yes.
Okay. Is there anything that I haven't asked you about your job that goes into your classifications that you might notice indicators, anything like that?
No.
Okay. Your Honor, at this point, the state would move to tender Investigator Hall specifically as an expert in gang classification at the DeKalb County Jail.
You said gang classification?
At the DeKalb County
DeKalb
Jail.
County Jail?
Yes.
What type of class are you gonna?
Just how he classifies gang members. So essentially a gang expert in DeKalb County Jail gangs only.
Okay, is there somebody in this case that you are going to, that's going to become relevant that?
Yes, Your Honor. I don't know if you heard Investigator Hall discuss Mr. Dorsey, but he's one of our defendants. And additionally, one of the counts in this indictment, as the court will see, is that Mr. Dorsey allegedly arranged a murder, tried to arrange a murder while he was in the DeKalb County Jail, and that we've charged that as a gang-related offense. So this would be relevant to show the gang affiliation. And once Your Honor hears from our other gang experts, it would be able to tie it, but this is relevant to show Dorsey's gang affiliation at the DeKalb County Jail.
All right. Okay, Cross.
Good morning, Your Honor. Good morning, State. Sudi Chala Jimenez on behalf of Mr. Dorsey. How are you doing, Investigator Hall?
Good, how you doing?
Good. I have a few questions for you.
Yes, sir.
All right. This first, I'm going to try to go in the same way that the state did. Let's start from the beginning. Let's start with your training. You said you received quite a bit of training, but most of it has been experience that you learned from working at the jail. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You've always been worked at the jail or a detention officer, correct?
Yes.
You've never worked the streets?
No.
You've never actually had a patrol car and go out there and drive and pull people over?
No.
Have you ever conducted any interviews of anybody that's not in custody?
No.
Okay. When you talk to individuals that are in custody, do you Mirandize them? Do you advise them of their rights?
When it's dealing with a charge, yes.
Okay. In this case today, we are dealing with charges. You said that you've spoken with some people that you understood to be sex, money, murder. Did you Mirandize those people when you spoke with them?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to this line of questioning. I think the way that he did his interviews.
Yeah, I sustain the objection.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. Now let's go back and focus on your training. You've received quite a bit of training, haven't you?
Yes, sir.
You actually testified when asked how many hours of gang-related training, you say you don't remember, right?
Yes.
And then you had to have your recollection refreshed. Is that correct?
Yes.
When you have so much training, sometimes it's just too much. You can't keep up with all of that. Is that right?
I'm going to object. That was argumentative.
I sustain the objection, Mr. Flynn.
All right. So when you were refreshed, and then you got a chance to look at State's Exhibit 17. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you have that in front of you?
No.
Your Honor, may I get a State's Exhibit and permission to publish?
Well, it's me, so who are you gonna publish it to?
I just want for you to see it and you see it at the same time. So
I don't need to. I mean, I'll have.
And also for the benefit of
I have a copy of it, so it's fine. I don't think you need to
Well,
publish
is
it.
it okay if I hand him my copy? It
Yeah,
is.
that's fine. That's fine.
All right. You testified that you have, after refreshing recollection, you testified you have had over 100 hours of training, is that right?
Yes.
You want to do a little math with me?
Yes.
All right. Can you please tell me, according to your resume, you received gang basics in DeKalb County Sheriff's Office on October 2016, is that correct?
Yes.
How many hours was that?
8 hours.
Okay. And then after that, let's say 8. After that, you also received narcotics and gang investigation from Dobbins Air Reserve Base on December 2019. How many hours you get there?
24.
Okay, 24. Next, basic gang investigator certificate course on Coweta County Sheriff's Office on May 2021. How many hours you get there?
8.
All right, so now we got 8 again. Then we got Georgia Gang Investigators Association Conference in Savannah, Georgia. Beautiful city. You don't know how many hours you got there?
Both of those conferences were a week long, so it was 8 hours for 5 days. So
Well, you didn't put that here. Why didn't you put that on your resume?
I don't know, sir.
Okay. Now let's go to the last one. GPSTC, chip stack. That's how y'all call it, right?
Yes,
Gang
sir.
recognition and identification course, October 2022. And that was Gwinnett County Police Academy. How many hours is that?
24.
All right. So let's just add up the ones that you actually put a number of hours in there. How much does that add up to?
I don't think the math test is for you, Mr. Johnson. Okay? Just want to help you out, okay?
About 66 hours.
66 hours. Would it surprise you to know that actually 8 plus 8 plus 24 plus 24 is 64?
64.
Okay, but you said 66.
Your Honor,
No,
I'm gonna object. Whether he can do math is not relevant to whether he's a gang expert.
no, this is going towards his credibility. I mean, he testified after being refreshed.
You know what? You can cross in my trial in regards to that, but you just stick with the Daubert issues or,
Yes, Your Honor.
okay, thank you.
Your Honor, is 64 greater or less than 100?
Let's move on. Let's move on, Mr. Chinez.
So you received over 100 hours of training, according to you. Most of that training has been pretty recent, hasn't it?
Yes.
You claim that you've had a chance to talk to a Cordarius Dorsey, is that right?
Yes. I didn't do his classification, but his classification was done at the jail.
So you said you didn't know his classification, is that right?
I didn't do his classification, but his classification is in our files.
Okay, so why are you here if you are not the one that did the classification?
I'm here for the expertise of the gangs in the DeKalb County Jail.
Okay, so as far as you know, you were just given a paper that says that he is sex money murderer, is that right?
Yes, it's documented. That's
Okay.
okay. My murder.
Who wrote this document classifying Mr. Dorsey as sex money murder?
An investigator that was on a unit at the time.
And what is that name?
Investigator name was Smith, Taylor Smith.
Taylor Smith. Does he
Yes.
know, is he still working with the cab office?
No.
And Taylor Smith, according to your knowledge of your business records, is the one that had a chance to interview Mr. Dorsey?
Yes.
Did you ever interview Mr. Dorsey?
No.
Okay. So all you know is from we're lawyers, a business record that somebody gave it to you, right?
Yes.
Now I'm going to show you what I will mark as, hold on. Do you have with you the whatever document you determined that my client is is claimed to be sex money murder?
No, I don't have it.
Do you remember that document?
Yes.
All right. What was that document called?
A gang classification.
Gang classifications. And then what does that document show?
It shows tattoos. It has basic information of the individual, and it also has a narrative that the person who classified the inmate wrote or typed.
Did that document that you reviewed, where you determined that someone else has classified Mr. Dorsey as sex money murderer, did that document have any information about the interview that was conducted?
Yes.
Okay. And in that interview, do you remember what questions were asked?
No.
Okay. what type of questions would be asked to determine if somebody is or is not in a gang?
Usually they would just ask the person, are you in a gang?
And according to your memory, did Mr. Dorsey answer in the affirmative to that question?
Yes.
He did. And what did, according to your memory, what did he answer?
He stated he was a sex minded murder blood.
Okay. And again, this is a documented record that has been given to the state. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So we should have a copy of that somewhere.
Yes.
Okay. Now, in that document, other than, hello, Mr. Inmate, what is your affiliation? What else do they ask them?
Basic information as name, date of birth, address, social security, things of that nature.
Let me make my question a little more specific. Other than, hey, Mr. Inmate, what are you affiliated with? What other questions are asked that would trigger you making a decision as to whether or not somebody's affiliated with a gang?
No other question besides if they are in the gang.
Okay. So just to clarify, are you in a gang? Yes or no? And then what's your name? What's your birthday? What's your social?
Yes, sir.
Now you want to know their basic information, birthday, social, and all that, so you can keep track of them. Is that right?
No.
Well, why are you asking for their social then? You're trying to get a gift card?
That's just part of the process of the classification.
But processes have a reason. What is the reason for that process?
Your Honor, he already answered that he doesn't have reason for that. That's part of the
That's the standing objection.
All right. Now, do you also do their fingerprints?
No.
All right. Someone else takes their fingerprints. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Does the person taking the fingerprints, do you consider them an expert in fingerprints?
Yes, I would.
Okay. Now, after having this interview with, I guess you said Mr. Smith, Investigator Smith had this interview, and then the main reason he decided to classify Mr. Dorsey as sex money murder is because he said, yes, I am. Is that right?
Yes, along with the tattoos or the picture of the tattoos that she took.
Are these interviews recorded?
No.
So it is just what the officer remembers, and we got to take her word for it.
Yes.
Now, let me correct that. Actually, we don't have to take her word for it because she's not here. We have to take your word that she did that. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Now, you were asked on multiple occasions, what do you do to classify somebody? And if I remember correctly, you kept answering, we look at literature, we search the cells, and we listen to jail calls. Is that right?
Yes.
All right. Now, when you look at literature, specific to Mr. Dorsey, what literature did you find in his possession?
I didn't find any literature in his possession.
I'm sorry?
I didn't find any literature from Mr. Dorsey.
Okay. Now, sometimes there's multiple steps because you want to corroborate, right?
Yes.
I mean, somebody can tell you, I am Billy, but they're really not. They are hypothetical. They might say, I am Billy, but they're not. They might be a gangster disciple, but they want to be placed with the police because maybe they have a reason to go in there and take care of something. Is that right?
Yes, that could happen.
People lie to you. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So then once you hear something, you go and you look for more information. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You didn't find any literature regarding Mr. Dorsey?
No.
Now, what are the identifiers of sex, money, murder?
You might see a tattoo with a SMM. They might have a Portland Trailblazer symbol on them, or a blazer, or they might show two guns or have two guns, or you might see the word two guns.
Okay. And once you have a tattoo, it's forever, isn't it?
Yes.
All right. And is gang membership eternal? Are you a gang member forever?
Yes.
Okay. So once you're in one gang, you can't shift gangs.
You can.
You just told me that you're in a gang forever. How are you going to do that?
But it's still considered a gang.
Oh, okay. Okay. Part of your training, am I right, is that they tell you to also consult with other agencies, correct?
Yes.
Because what you're doing is you're gathering intelligence, is that right?
Yes.
And you don't want to have just the intelligence of a small circle of information, right?
Yes.
Okay. What agencies do you consult on a regular basis?
The Cobb County Police Department and Department of Corrections.
All right, but that's still just the same group of people you're dealing with, right?
Yes.
Do you ever go out and consult with the investigators in Troup County?
No, I haven't.
Now, Troup County has a very big gang problem, don't they?
I don't know.
We're not qualifying anything.
I sustain the objection.
So today, you're here to tell us that the only thing you only know stuff at the jail. All right.
Yes.
All right.
DeKalb County.
At the DeKalb County Jail,
Yes.
which is a different county than the county we're in today.
Yes.
These gang profiles that y'all create, do you share them with other agencies?
If they ask for them, yes.
Okay. Have you looked into gang profiles of other agencies for the same individuals?
I have asked for DeKalb County for this individual we're speaking of today.
Okay. You had asked, and what did you get as a result of you asking that?
I got a gang profile from that department.
From what department?
DeKalb County.
When did you get that?
I don't recall the actual date.
Was it like a few weeks ago, a few months ago?
No, it was months ago.
Months ago, okay. But you are DeKalb County though?
Yes.
All right. So I'm confused. You being DeKalb County, you asked for DeKalb County's?
Yes, the DeKalb County Police Department has their own separate gang unit.
Okay. And who is in that gang unit?
Different police officer detectives.
All right. Who's the detective you spoke with about my client, Mr. Dorsey?
I can't recall his name.
Okay. And then when he gave you this profile, he just emailed it to you, or how did you get that profile?
He just emailed it.
Did you have a conversation with him?
No.
Okay. Did you go back with him and say, hey, my information checks, it's the same as yours, or hey, some of your information is conflicting. Did you do that?
No.
Do you ever do that?
Yes.
All right. Have you ever done that with regards to my client, Mr. Dorsey?
No.
Why not?
I didn't see the need to.
You don't see the need to verify information that you collected and other agencies have collected?
But
He already said he didn't see the need to.
I sustain the objection.
With regards to the two profiles that you have, one was made by the Cobb County Police Department that you don't remember the name of that officer, is that right?
yes, sir.
The other one was made by Investigator Taylor Smith, who was with the Cobb County Sheriff's Office, is that right?
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little about those profiles. Are they both the exact same, or do they differ in some ways, and in what ways?
No, they'll be different. The CAB police will probably have more narratives of what they occur on with the individual on the street.
Do you know how the CAB classifies, what information they use to classify somebody?
The CAB police know.
Okay. Have you ever gotten a profile from the Atlanta Police Department?
Not that I recall of.
You didn't ask for one?
No.
Would it be beneficial to know what the Atlanta Police Department is saying about my client for your classification purposes?
It could.
Okay. Do you usually just do things by gut feeling, or is there a manual for you to follow when classifying somebody?
Yes, it is. I sustain the objection.
I'll rephrase, Your Honor. When classifying somebody, the things you do to classify them, are they just the things that you do because that's what you feel like doing, or is there an actual number of steps, a methodology given to you by the people who trained you?
Yes, it's certain things that we would do in order to classify somebody.
All right, and that is, so it's not just whatever you want to do. There's steps you have to follow.
Yes.
All right. Please tell us, what are those steps that you have to follow when classifying somebody?
Investigate phone calls, conduct cell searches to try to find literature, things of that nature.
No, but list them. That's just
Yes,
same thing you can say.
it's no specific steps. It's just investigating.
Okay, so there's no specific steps. You just do whatever you want to do.
It's not whatever I want, but it's investigating.
All right. Now, do you know if other agencies follow the same steps you follow?
I don't know.
In this conference you go to, do they share best practices?
Yes.
What are those best practices that you've been taught about?
Well, as the agency, it's a lot of police departments, so their practices wouldn't be the same as mine in the sheriff's office.
Do you know what best practices means?
Any practice that benefits you the most?
Did you ever go to this conference? You're going there to learn, is that right?
Yes.
And as you're going there to learn, what did you gain from it? What did you decide? I'm going to start doing that because I like the way they do it.
Definitely phone calls.
Definitely phone calls. So you weren't doing phone calls before?
I was.
Okay. And have you ever learned anything new from this conference you go to?
Yes.
What?
Just how to prosecute different cases or bring about charges for different cases.
Okay. And you talked about that. You talked about part of your duties are to investigate and later prosecute. How many cases have you prosecuted as a result of your gang investigations?
Maybe 3.
Maybe 3. Do you remember those 3? That's not that many. Which 3 were those?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say their names or.
It's public record, right?
Yeah, I would ask you if you want to, you could just describe the details of those people. Those people are not related to the
I'll sustain the objection.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I don't think she objected to the question. She just objected to him saying names. But
Yes.
if you could give the details of these cases.
I've had gang initiations where people were jumped in the gang. I had people getting stabbed due to telling or snitching in the gang.
That's 2. What's the 3rd one?
It's pretty much the same. Usually jumping and physical altercations for the same. I maybe had another one where it was a physical altercation.
Okay. None of those involved Mr. Dorsey, did they?
No.
Okay. What gangs were involved in those that you prosecuted?
Bloods.
Blood's a very general term, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, which bloods?
G-Shine, sex, money, murder.
Okay. Now you said that you determine leadership in part based on phone calls. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Because when people want to do something, they have to get permission from leadership. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You made a very big claim that my client, Mr. Dorsey, is sex, money, murder leadership. Is that right?
I did hear that at one point in time, yes.
You heard that at one point in time. When did you hear that?
Months or maybe a year ago.
A year ago?
Mm-hmm.
What did you hear?
We heard that Mr. Dorsey was over the sex, money, murder, bloods over the jail.
Is that what you heard somebody on the phone saying, Mr. Cordarius Dorsey is the chief executive officer of sex, money, murder? Is that what you heard?
Not in those words.
Okay, well then tell me what the words were.
The words were, yeah, his nickname, Juicy Boy Polo, he running things in here.
Okay, who was in that phone call?
I don't recall the name.
Do you have that phone call saved?
I don't know.
So you don't know who was in the phone call, and you didn't even save the phone call.
I could have said, I just don't remember if I did.
You guys have the capability of saving calls.
Yes.
Right. Now, I guess you don't have more information about that, so let's move on. Sometimes in calls, you determine somebody is leadership because they need to give the blessing for something to happen. Is that right?
Yes.
They need to approve a murder. Is that right?
Yes.
More specifically, I think you said that they need to approve the murders that happen at the DeKalb County Jail. Is that right?
Well, sometimes assaults, yes.
Okay. Or sometimes assaults. How many murders have taken place at the DeKalb County Jail since you've been there?
Murders that's gang related?
First, let's start with murders. How many murders inside the DeKalb County Jail have taken place since you've been there?
One.
When was that?
I don't recall the year, but it was years ago.
Years ago.
Yes.
My client was at the DeKalb County Jail. He was an inmate there for some time. Is that right?
Yes.
Do you remember when he was an inmate there?
Maybe 2019. I don't remember the exact year.
Maybe 2019. Through when?
Your Honor, he just said he didn't recall exactly when Mr. Dorsey was an inmate there.
I don't think that's what he said. The first he answered, my first question was when did he get there? And my second question was when did he leave? And he should be able to.
Well, if he knows, do you know when he arrived and when he left, sir?
No, I don't recall the exact date.
Okay. This murder you speak of, did it happen while my client was there?
No.
Okay, so unrelated to my client, that murder.
Yes.
Was that murder gang related?
No.
Okay, so you testify in direct that you can identify leadership because they give the approval for a murder, but is it right to say that there's been 0 murders since my client had been at the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes.
Is that because he prevented anybody from killing somebody?
Not of my recollection.
You don't know if he saved a bunch of lives?
I don't know.
Okay. Now, you also said there's some assaults. Sometimes they got to get blessings for assaults. Is that right?
Yes.
I am going to assume there's been quite a bit of assaults and jumpings since you've been there.
Yes.
All right. How many of those assaults were approved by Mr. Dorsey?
I have no knowledge of how many that's been approved by him.
So first, that one of the factors is somebody giving permission to commit acts at the jail, puts him in a leadership position, right?
Yes.
But you don't have any for Mr. Dorsey?
No.
What other factors do you determine when you're trying to see whether somebody is leadership or not?
It would just be through phone calls and different interviews with inmates stating.
Okay. Have you spoken with anybody that has told you that Mr. Dorsey is leadership?
No.
So today you testify in direct that you have determined his leadership. Is it fair to say that the only factor that goes into that determination, into your potentially your expertise, your expert opinion, is that one phone call that you don't remember?
Yes.
All right. Who are the other leaders of sex, money, murder at the DeKalb County Jail?
I have no knowledge of that right now.
You are the gang expert at the DeKalb County Jail, right?
Yes.
First, tell me the structure. I know a little bit about police structure. You know, you have captain, chief, lieutenant, sergeants, deputies, and all that military, not as much as the court. But you tell me, what is the structure of the sex money gang at the DeKalb County Jail?
I can't tell you an exact structure at the jail.
No, don't tell me the exact one. Tell me whatever you got.
I just go by from what I investigate and hear on phone calls or what I might learn from different things that I find through cell searches or something like that.
Cool. Based on that, tell me from what you just said, phone calls, cell searches, literature, what do you know or do you think you know about the structure of sex, money, murder at the DeKalb County Jail?
I don't know. I will go based off of what a person said on phone call or if they say they're running things, that would be my...
So you don't know?
No.
I don't think there's a point to keep going on. No further questions.
Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Wright, go ahead.
Good to be back up here. Hello, sir. Quick question. In DeKalb County, you said you're not familiar with YSL, correct?
Yes.
As in correct, you're not?
I'm not familiar yet.
Okay. And you're not familiar, well, I think you said Billy's, correct? You know them.
I know them.
And sex, money, murder, correct?
Yes.
And these are all separate gangs, correct?
Separate gangs under the blood gang.
Okay. But as far as you know, this YSL, is it just some sort of conglomerate, some big group that everyone gets to belong to? Is
Your
that?
Honor, I'd object. We're not trying to qualify him at all in YSL.
I sustain the objection.
Want to speak on YSL.
And your familiarity, or I think it's about 2 to 3 years back that you started your training.
Yes.
Okay, so you wouldn't know anything going on back in 2015 related to gang activity, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
Just one or two questions, Judge. Well, just a few
One or two?
Just a few questions.
Okay, oh. So you've learned, you got the Menendez method, huh? Is that
exactly.
right? Okay, all right.
All right. Investigator Hall, I heard you use the word prosecute, that you have assisted or you've prosecuted not at least, you said 3 cases, gang cases at the DeKalb County Jail. Is that correct?
Yes.
Does prosecute mean that you testified in court in regards to those cases?
I've done hearings, but I haven't been to actual trial for the cases yet.
Okay, you've never been called as a witness at a trial of a case involving any sort of gang activity at the DeKalb County Jail?
Yes.
You have never been qualified as an expert, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And in regards to your duties at the jail, you classify individuals at the jail. That's what you testified to, right?
Yes.
And that is based upon a variety of different information that you get. You can get it from the hearsay statement of another officer, correct?
Yes.
You can get it from a document, or your duties can get that information from a document prepared by somebody else, correct?
Yes.
That you have no personal knowledge of yourself, right?
Yes.
You can get that from a phone call that you might listen to, correct?
Yes.
Just a phone call like anybody else could listen to, correct?
Well, they would have to have the rights to listen to them in the jail, but yeah.
Sure. But I mean, if hypothetically a phone call is made at the jail and it's provided to, let's say, me in discovery, I can listen to that same phone call and get the same information that you get from that phone call, right?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have any idea, sir, how often inmates are wrongly classified as belonging to a gang or not at the jail?
No.
Okay. That's all I have.
Yes, Mr. Short.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is Woods. Sir, how are you?
Good.
Max Shard on behalf of Shannon Stillwell. You've never met my client, Mr. Stillwell, to your recollection, have you?
No.
You've never met my client, Mr. Stillwell, to your recollection, have you?
I never met him.
Okay. I just want to talk to you. I'm not going to ask you anything about Cordarius Dorsey. I just want to talk about your methodologies. When Attorney Jimenez asked the steps you followed, you spoke about listening to phone calls and looking for gang literature, correct?
Yes.
Okay. To me, that's talking about your sources of information. I don't want to talk about your sources. I want to talk about, once you have the information, how do you make the call about if someone's in a gang and what gang they're in, okay?
Okay.
All right. So you've attended conferences?
Yes.
Okay. To your understanding, as a gang, you would consider yourself a gang investigator, correct?
Yes.
Okay. To your understanding as a gang investigator, is there a universal classification system used across the United States?
I wouldn't say universal. I don't know the other agencies' practices involving their classification.
Well, do they teach a certain classification system at the conferences that you attend?
No.
Okay. Are there a specific list of factors that you have been taught to consider before you determine if someone is in a gang or what gang?
Yeah, it would be based on investigating.
I understand that you investigate, but after you're done with investigations and have compiled all your information, do you have a set of factors that you consider to determine if someone is in a gang or not, and if so, what gang?
It would be based off what they give us or what we find. I'm understanding the question, right?
Well, you indicated that if someone says, I'm in so-and-so gang, when you talk to them, you might consider that in making a determination if they're in a gang.
Yeah, I would consider it, but I wouldn't.
I think that the defense attorney is
Okay,
literally
so
walking him down, because he don't have a set methodology to how he come up with the conclusion to how he's classified someone as a gang member.
As a member of a specific gang based solely on self-admission.
Solely off self-admission, I would say it needs to be more investigating to find out if it's true.
Okay, so as an expert in gang investigations, basing it solely off of self-admission would be incorrect.
No, but I would say that you need to investigate more, find out more things to prove that that person is part of that gang.
Right, so it'd be incorrect to base it solely on self-admission. Okay. What other factors as a gang investigator do you consider?
Tattoos, the gang literature, as far as the jail, what we find, maybe statements by the person.
The person being the person you're investigating?
Yes.
Okay. And in your testimony is there's not a nationally, universally recognized scoring system or anything like that?
No, not universally recognized.
How about in Georgia? Is there a Georgia universally recognized scoring system?
No, not that I know of.
How about DeKalb County?
Yes. We do have a scoring system.
Do you use that scoring system?
Yes.
Okay, well, how does that scoring system work?
It's based on a certain amount of points. Maybe over 10 points, you would be considered a gang member, or 6 to 8 points, you would be an associate, and it's depending on what questions that they answer.
Okay, well, what are the factors?
If they have, that they state state affiliation, or they state they got jumped or blessed in, or if they are, or the defendants with somebody else, is multiple that I can't all recall right now on the paper.
Okay. And these points, if something doesn't apply, do you get negative points?
No.
So you just add points?
Just add points.
Okay, and I'm not trying to trick you with something that you don't have in front of you. Do you have the ability right now to explain the point system to me? Like what's worth what points or anything?
I can't right now, no.
Okay, well, where is that located?
I will have that at my office.
Is it published anywhere by DeKalb County that the public can find it?
Possibly. I'm sure it would be published if requested.
Okay. All right, thank you. No further questions.
Anybody else? Yes, Mr. Williams.
Good morning, Angela D. Williams from Mr. Ryan. You're aware that people join gangs for safety?
Yes.
Do you classify someone who joins a jail for safety?
Yes, we will stick.
Do you know?
Basis.
I'd ask to clarify. She said, do you, she asked about people who joined a jail for safety. I don't know if that was his.
Well, yeah, why don't you, I'll stay in this form, Mr. Williams, why don't you rephrase that?
Okay, do people join gangs in jail for safety?
Sometimes, yes.
Do you classify somebody who's in jail who joins a gang for safety?
Yes, we will still classify.
And do inmates get tattoos in jail after they've been through intake?
Yes.
Okay, nothing else. Thank you.
All right, anyone else?
Yes, Your Honor, short briefly. I guess I should say less than 100 questions.
Sorry about the ads, you guys. Sorry about the ads. Make sure you hit that like button and support the channel, man. Come up the video, man. This is the YSL members, man. I guess they taking these pleas.
I'm sorry. I figure something out. Are you a gang expert? Are you a DeKalb County jail gang expert? Or are you a DeKalb County jail gang classification expert? What are you?
Your Honor, we've moved to classify him as an expert in classifications at the DeKalb County Jail.
Great. Okay. Which one are you?
I'm a DeKalb County expert in classifying at the jail.
Okay, so it's just classifying gang members.
Yes.
At the DeKalb.
At the DeKalb
County Jail. Okay. Now, in this role, do you have any experience or training going back to, I guess, the makeup of the gang, the history of all gangs, the hierarchy of all gangs, and I mean all gangs in the DeKalb County Jail?
It would be based on what I find and what I investigate in the jail.
So, well, your training isn't based off of what you find and investigate. My question was, from your training, do you get that information to go into what you're finding?
At some trainings, yes.
Okay, so tell me about that. What type of trainings do you get with the background, the history, the hierarchy of gangs that you've been trained to help you do your job?
I haven't been trained. Well, the trainings I've been to, it doesn't go into the hierarchies, but it goes to basically identifying and recognizing.
You would agree that not all gangs are controlled or even ran the same, correct?
Yes.
And you would agree that the Bloods specifically are completely different from the Latin Kings or the Crips or even the Aryan Brotherhood, correct?
Yes.
All right, so tell me your training and experience about, or what training experience do you have to separate certain gangs at certain times so you know who they are or you know where they are in the system?
As far as the jail, I would know by the literature that I find or the phone calls that I would hear.
And I get that you find stuff in your investigations. I'm still just talking about your training outside of your investigation. What are you trained to do that equips you to do that job? That's what I'm asking.
We are trying to identify certain tattoos that we will see. We will see maybe how they are talking, the lingo, maybe what flags they might be wearing.
Okay, so no specific training as to this is why I know it's a member of a Blood, or this is why I know.
Yes, it would be things like a Blood would have a 5-pointed star, or you might see a Latin King with yellow, or things of that nature.
Okay, and you put that into, I guess, this system when you're classifying a person, correct?
Would I put things that I found in my training, would I put it into that system
Things that you learned in your training that get you through your investigation?
Yes, I would
you
put
would put that information in the system.
I will put that together, yes.
Okay, so in your experience, you already testified that people go into gangs for different reasons. So in your experience, is there any time when someone gets out of a gang?
I haven't experienced it.
You haven't experienced it?
No.
Okay, so through your training, you've never had a class where someone has said some gang members get out of a gang at some point in life. You've never had that training?
I've heard of stories where there's been people who say they've got out of the gangs, but I haven't myself just experienced somebody getting out of a gang.
And that wasn't my question. My question is through your training and experience and just common knowledge, because the state's calling you an expert, you know that there are certain times when people get out of gangs, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, once you've classified somebody as a gang, because that's your expertise, how do you declassify them if they get out? Have you been taught to do that?
No.
Okay. So basically, you just put stuff into the system. You don't know what happens afterwards.
Yes, you can mark them inactive or active, or if you have the knowledge, you can make a person an inactive gang member.
But I kind of just asked you that, and you said no. So let me back up. You put people in the system as a certain gang member.
Yes.
How do you take them out of the system as a certain gang member?
Well, we will mark them inactive.
Okay, not take them out, just mark them inactive.
Yes.
Are you familiar that Georgia just got that new statewide gang database?
Yes.
Does the information that you put in that data or in your system go into that database?
No.
It stays only with you?
Yes.
All right, no further questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Judge, just briefly.
Yes, Ms. Bernard, go ahead.
Thank you.
Gina Bernard for Jaden Myrick. Good morning, investigator. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
So you are aware that when somebody gets arrested in DeKalb County, they go to first appearance, correct?
Yes.
And when they're at first appearance, every single person that comes in and is arrested is gets a public defender and is represented by a public defender, correct?
Yes.
And your interviews of these individuals comes after first appearance or before?
Usually after.
Okay, so you are interviewing people without their attorneys being present, is that correct?
Yes.
And you're not Mirandizing them either.
I've already objected to this line of questioning the different variants.
I stand the objection.
Thank you. That's all that I have. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? Okay.
Good morning, Attorney Eric Johnson for Mr. Eppinger. Just had a few questions to ask you. You stated on your examination earlier that majority of your information regarding this classifications come.
Use the microphone.
Sorry, Your Honor.
All right.
I'm kind of tall. But you stated on your examination that majority of your, I guess, expertise comes from listening to jail calls, correct?
Yes.
And also from reading stuff that you might see in someone's cell, correct?
Yes.
So with these jail calls, you have no way of determining the veracity of anyone that's on the phone call, do you?
Regarding who's talking?
I mean, as far as the truthfulness of what they're saying.
No.
So basically, you're taking what they're saying and speculating as to what it means, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, when you go into the jail cells and you retrieve the literature, you're speculating as to what that literature means, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you don't have any signed statements from anyone saying this is what it means, any sign?
No.
Nothing like that?
No.
So basically, majority of the information or the conclusions that you have reached is mere speculation.
Objection, argumentative.
I stand the objection.
So I'll rephrase the question, Your Honor. So is it safe to say that majority of your conclusions are merely your opinions and not based on any particular fact?
Well, it'd be based on what I think, the knowledge I gained from what I heard.
Right. But in your opinion of that information, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it's possible that opinion could be wrong.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
All right. Anybody else, any other defense counsels wish to ask any questions of Mr. Hall? Okay. Argument.
Your Honor, permission to redirect briefly?
Okay.
Thank you,
Just
Judge.
request that the redirect is now tethered to whatever is scope of the cross.
That's federal court. Yeah, okay. Georgia has no scope. Georgia has no scope rule, remember? Okay.
Judge, I will keep
One
to the
witness,
witness.
one attorney.
Yeah, one witness, one attorney though, Ms. Love. You're gonna need to let your colleague handle that though.
Your Honor, I would ask that the court provide leave and provide the state, with the court's permission, the state can have more than one attorney, and I would ask for the court's permission to redirect the investigator on the stand, please, Your Honor.
I have some discretion in order to do that. I'll allow her to do that.
And Your Honor, I will keep my questions tailored to what was asked on cross-examination.
Okay, all right.
Thank you,
Yeah.
We
Judge.
ask to just reserve an opportunity to recross if necessary. Your Honor.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Judge.
Good afternoon, investigator. Good morning, is it still, Investigator Hall? How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good. You were asked on cross-examination what training that you get in order to do your job. Do you remember being asked that?
Yes.
What is GGIA?
The Georgia Gang Investigators Association.
And do you obtain information during training with GGIA that helps you to do your job?
Yes.
Is this information that is generally known to the public?
Not all the time.
Okay. And do you obtain information from other gang investigators during the sessions that you have with GGIA?
Yes.
Yes.
Respectfully, Your Honor, I know Honorable Deputy Attorney Lovel's not here, but some of the questions were asked by us already.
Well, she got here when you all started your examination, your cross. So, and she may have been here a little bit before that, but.
Hey, y'all hit that like button, y'all. Y'all hit that like button out there. Hit that like
And do
button.
you
Some
obtain
of the video
information
support the channel, y'all.
from those
Need
sessions
y'all to
with
pay attention. This is
GGIA
the
that
YSL
aids
Young
you in
Thug,
doing your
Young
job?
Thug YSL case, and we also have the
And
brother
are the
Obama
sessions with
taking the
GGIA
deal,
open to
taking
the
the plea.
general
Hey, y'all just bear with me, man. We're gonna get right back. Have some technical difficulties.
Some of the information that you learned was public knowledge. Now, let me ask you this. The gang that we were speaking about, the sex, money, murder gang, what area of DeKalb County do they operate out of?
Objection, Your Honor, relevance.
The relevance is, Your Honor, he's basically stating that the state asked him questions about whether or not he had information that was not readily known to the public. I'm trying to establish his situation.
It's still, it's not relevant for the inquiry, at least for what he's being tried to be qualified for.
I mean, it's just a response to what was asked on redirect, Your Honor.
You're asking him something that's not relevant.
So is it your position?
The objection.
Okay, is it your position today that only a person in your position would know what a gang tattoo is?
Objection, Your Honor. Grossly.
I sustain the objection.
And what's the basis for the objection?
Argumentative, grossly mischaracterizing any particular testimony.
There's a couple bases. So,
is it of your opinion that the existence of gang tattoos is something that is not known by other individuals in the public?
No.
Okay, so it is possible for members of the public to know and to be able to identify gang tattoos, gang markings, gang colors, gang insignias, gang.
Objection, compound question.
I'll break it down, Your Honor.
And Your Honor, also objection as to asking the witness to get into the province of the court in this hearing.
Your Honor, the state made numerous attempts in bolstering this witness to say that his knowledge was something that the public did not know. I believe there are 4 or 5 questions asked for that particular point. So I'm basically coming back asking, are this information something that the public would know? Because one of the factors in consideration at Daubert is that he would be able to say something to assist the public that the general public would not know.
Assist the jury.
Assist the jury of something that they commonly don't know. To basically say that he has testified that majority of his information has come from individuals in the jail and stuff that he found in their rooms and stuff like that. Although he has received specialized training about this, when he's been classified as an identifications expert. So if the identifications that he's used and he's testified about are the markings, the tattoos, gang insignias, I believe he mentioned flags and all of these other things. The state made the effort to say that the knowledge of these things are not within the purvey of the public and the common individual. I'm just merely asking questions to establish that they are, that the things that he's talked about.
Okay, all right.
So
I'm gonna overrule the objection. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. So is it possible for the public to know, individuals in the public or throughout the area?
Speculation, is it possible?
Okay. Well,
do you know?
Do you know if individuals in the public know about gang markings?
Yes.
Has your experience and training shown you that?
Yes.
And would you say that these individuals may also know about gang insignias?
Yes.
Objection calls for speculation.
Okay. Well, are you aware that the public has knowledge of, through your training and experience, have you encountered individuals of the public who have knowledge of gang markings?
Yes.
Through your training and experience, have you encountered individuals of the public who have knowledge of gang insignias?
Yes.
Through your experience and training, have you encountered individuals who have knowledge of gang colors and tattoos?
Yes.
Okay. So based on your experience and training, is it safe to say that individuals in the public, that knowledge of these particular things is not something outside the knowledge of the general public?
Objection, Your Honor, that is within the court's purview to make a determination.
Yeah, I sustain the objection.
No, I'm asking his opinion.
But still my determination.
I believe I made my point.
In terms of that particular last question.
I believe I made my point, Your Honor. No further questions.
Okay. All right. Anybody else? All right, Mr. Boss.
David Dawson, Mr. Stilwell. You ever testified in court before?
Yes.
As to,
Answered, Your Honor.
I believe he said he'd never been qualified.
I don't think he's been qualified, so yeah, he can ask it. I'll overrule the objection. Go ahead.
Pertaining to classifications?
Yes.
Were you determined to be an expert in that area during those?
but I wasn't labeled an expert.
Judge, ask and answer.
Well, I want to know that because I don't think, I want
Yes, Your
that to be clear or clarify.
I wasn't.
He was not. I don't have anything for it.
So you have not been qualified as an expert, Mr. Hall?
No.
Have you been qualified as an expert in any other area or gang affiliation or gang classification in any of the courts in Georgia?
No.
How many you did say earlier that you've done at least 50 classifications of gang members at the DeKalb County Jail. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And you've been a police officer since 2014?
Yes, I was a detention officer in 2014, and I was a peace officer in 2021.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions based on the court's questions? Okay. Argument now, Mr. Jimenez.
If the state wants to go first, I'll go first.
Now, you all go first, and I'll let them respond. Can we ask Mr. Hall this out? Mr. Hall, just stay there for a second. Okay, all right. Go ahead.
Sudi Chakimis, I'm Captain Dorsey. May it please the court, state. It's, what I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask that you do not qualify him as an expert. And basically, the reason for that is because the testimony today showed that he just doesn't meet the qualifications. He doesn't meet the standard to be qualified as an expert. There's very likelihood that there is a body of work out there where people are able to classify and understand and identify gangs.
Wouldn't you have don't you have the ability, and I'm not saying your client has any responsibility to present any evidence in this case, but wouldn't that be the area of a contra expert or somebody that somebody would come in here? Because remember, we're dealing with non-scientific specialized knowledge. So the state basically has offered Mr. Hall to say, okay, look, I've got about 10 years of policing and detentions experience. They're classified. They want to classify him as a, in their words here, as a gang classification expert at the DeKalb County Jail. And he's been in some training in terms of classification classes in 2022. He's testified about some other things. He has about 100 hours of gang training. He's listened to 1,000 hours of phone calls and he's familiar with gang tattoos. So, in terms of the court looking at that, deal with the issue of this particular expert. It may be, or I think the state's trying to qualify him by experience.
Absolutely, Your Honor. That's not the argument. No, that's and I'm just trying to get to there. I'm going to be hopefully not too long-winded, but Your Honor, certainly there is a body of expertise out there for people that classify people in gangs. Ideally, yes, I can call my own experts, and if that comes to that, hopefully the state won't get into that because that'll be burden shifting. I ain't got to call nobody. It's not my burden.
You don't, and I don't want you to think that that this court's going to impose that upon you either.
Absolutely, thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
But my point is, based on this, respectfully, officer, based on Officer Hall's experience, I say that yes, there's a body of work out there that makes this something that somebody can have an expertise, but he doesn't. He is not an expert. He's never been tendered as an expert. Actually, he's never, don't know if somebody's tried it before, but he's never been qualified as an expert before. I do know that with regards to the DeKalb County Jail classifications of gangs, he is top 2. But there's only 2 people there that have ever done that. So that doesn't make him an expert. I want to focus on 24-7-702, Your Honor. This shall apply to all proceedings, and a witness is qualified as an expert by knowledge, this is it, skill, training, education, may testify in the form of an opinion or otherwise. If, there's a big if, and that's when we get into the factors. The expert's scientific, technical, or otherwise specialized knowledge, yes, there has to be, it doesn't have to be science, it doesn't have to be hard science. And that's the point. Everybody keeps focusing on Kumo tires, and that's what it said. It doesn't have, you don't have to be a scientist. It can be anybody. You can be an expert on social media. You can be an expert on Instagram and getting a bunch of likes. There's plenty of experts out there. So sure, this body of work can be developed into an expertise. But if the knowledge will help the trier of fact to understand the evidence or to determine a fact and issue. At that point, in this case, I don't know how much help he can be to the jury, because when I asked him, how do you classify my client, Mr. Dorsey, he only based it on, according to him, self-admission. We don't know. We don't object that's hearsay, but self-admission to somebody else, to a party that's not even here. They can call that investigator. That witness can come and be a witness. And you know what? That comes as a statement of a party opponent. It's going to come in. You don't need to bolster it by giving somebody the nice little badge of I am an expert. It's not an opinion. If it was self-admission, then just say it. And then the other only factor, he says he had a methodology that he created. And funny enough, he's gone through all this training, over 100 hours. If his math is correct, over 100 hours of training, where I'm paraphrasing, but pretty much he said he didn't really learn anything from it. Whatever he heard that was good, that was a best practice, he was already doing. Jail calls, great. That's a great thing. And I'll submit to the court, absolutely, jail calls are crucial. When I used to be in the office under Mr. Howard, I would listen to jail calls like it was my iPod. I listened to those things 24/7. I was in court. I was at home. I was on my drive. I was listening to jail calls, and people say some really stupid things. You know what? Absolutely nobody said anything about my client. He claims that there's a call where somebody said something, but he doesn't have that call. He doesn't even remember who was in that call. That's the only other factor. He has not testified. He found any literature. He didn't testify as to anything else regarding to my client. So if the only thing you have is self-admission, that's a statement of a party opponent. We're going to object to it. We're not stipulating that comes in. You're probably going to overrule my objection, but you don't need an expert for that. All you need is the other officer to say, yes, he told me that. And she doesn't need to be an expert either. Let's go on to the next factor. This testimony is based upon sufficient facts or data. It doesn't have to be lab reports. It doesn't have to be gas spectrometry or whatever the GBI experts were saying. Just facts or data. You know what data is? Intelligence, intel. What facts or data do you have about him? He spoke about it. I asked him. Not even about him. We're not here for him as an expert on Mr. Dorsey. We're him as an expert on classification of the DeKalb County Jail. And you know what that expert would know? He would know who is the leadership of sex, money, murder, because that's one of the primary gangs. He can't even drop one name. Just tell me one name. Your Honor, all these great attorneys here, and you can just drop names. You can say Kumo, Dauber, Miranda. You're just dropping names. Why? Because you are an expert. You know your field of expertise. He doesn't. He doesn't even know who's running that jail, because apparently that jail is ran by Bloods. And that jail has been protected by these Bloods because there's been 0 murders since my client was there. And apparently he's the leader. So thank you, Mr. Dorsey, for keeping us all safe. But that's not the case. He doesn't know anything about these gangs. All he knows is that he read a report that somebody else wrote. He's not an expert. Moving on to the next one. The testimony is the product of reliable principles and methods. These methods, again, it doesn't have to be, I pour in a little bit of 5 milliliters into a beaker and I put it there into the heat for 50 minutes. No. What are your methods? My methods are same methods he keeps spitting out. I listen to jail calls, I do interviews, and you get literature. Those are the only methods. What are the best practices? When you went to Gypstick, when you went to all of these things, what are the best practices that you learned? Nothing. I was already doing it. He's so good. He doesn't need any training. I mean, this resume is lengthy, and he didn't really need it because he already knew all of that. What is the point of having training? Well, we all go to continuing legal education because we need to learn something. I am learning every day here. I am learning that, from now on, I need to refer to people as the honorable, because that is respectful, and I learned that from Mr. Steele. I'm learning so much stuff from Mr. Harvey. We're not working together. They're not in my team. We're co-defendants. We have antagonistic defenses. We're still being forced to go together, but I am learning from them because I continue to learn every day. This witness didn't learn anything from all this training, all these hundreds of hours of training. Let's go on to the next factor. The expert has reliably applied the principles and methods. Cool. Do you have principles and methods? As the gatekeeper, Your Honor, you are St. Peter. You're at the gate. You're telling people who can come in and who not. That is what a gatekeeper is. Again, I'm repeating the same thing I said yesterday. But as the gatekeeper, if you decide to classify as an expert, you're saying your principles are great. Your principles and your methods work. Yes, you came up with them yourself. You didn't need to learn anything from all these hundreds of hours of training. You already had it. But did you apply it? Did you apply it to this case properly? The only thing he has, someone else's report, and a call that he can't even pinpoint to or give it to us. He talked about a point system. He doesn't know the point system. If you ask me the Ayala factors, I can spit him out real quick. Ask him the point system for his expertise. He don't know nothing. I stopped asking questions because all the answers were, I don't know. Your Honor, Daubert wants to allow reliable and relevant evidence in. Kumo explains it doesn't have to be scientific. And General Electric Company gives us the standard. The standard is abuse of discretion. That is a very high standard. It is within your discretion. But Your Honor, I will submit to you, this is going to be a 6 to 9 months trial. Not because of the evidence, but because of the sideshow they're trying to put up. They're trying to get everything in, everything that has nothing to do with the facts of this case. They're trying to bolster people by making them experts. Again, just tender into evidence whatever that legal classification was as a business record exception. Not saying that we agree with it, we will object to that, but it's a business record exception because it's part of classifications. When you go into the jail, you get fingerprinted. That young man or woman that grabs your finger and rolls it across is not a fingerprint expert. That is a technician that takes fingerprints. A person that asks you, what gang are you in? What is your name, date of birth, and social security number? That is not an expert. That is a technician. That is an intake officer. And that is a very honorable job. It is a risky job. Anybody that puts on a badge every morning and goes to work, whether it's in the streets or at the jail, is risking their lives every day. Does not make them experts. Stop trying to bolster all this testimony that could come in other ways. They can prove their points in many other ways by classifying people as experts. Just on this particular set of motions, we are dealing with, we've been here for a week, going into way after the court closes on these medical experts. I was never approached and asked. I mean, I know I'm not the one, the shot caller, but we can stipulate all this medical expert. You don't need to put in, I think one of the experts that came in yesterday, I love his answers. Like one is, he's a medical expert and he asked me, have you ever been published? No, he's not an academic, but he's still an expert. Have you had any awards? Nothing beyond my paycheck, but he's still an expert. But you know what? This is what the trial is about. They are trying to get in all these people that are not experts. And if you mix them in with the actual experts, with the medical examiners, with the GBI forensic chemists, if you put them all there, then they all sound, but they're not.
He going straight at the dude.
And we asked the court that
He
you do
going
not allow
straight at my boy. He doing him dirty. You know what I'm saying? I don't know how y'all feel about that. I want to get to the rest of this whole court case deliberation, man.
Argument before the state.
We definitely got to line this thing up properly. We definitely want to line this thing up.
I'm just going to bring this up because we've heard
the technical difficulties.
What the state's going to say. We heard it all day yesterday.
Not yet.
Well, no, we heard it all day yesterday.
We know that the brother takes a plea deal yesterday. Today, I think he's about to come up right now.
Gave him outside information that the regular everyday person doesn't have. The testimony that he said was
kind of inconsistent.
Pull it up. Make sure y'all hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Subscribe to the channel,
cases being prosecuted, which has nothing to do with what's going on here, and specific crimes that are being investigated. So the state's going to get up and say there's all this outside information. I just want to remind.
Make sure y'all subscribe to the channel too, man. very important for you guys to subscribe.
You understand that you are not allowed to possess or use a firearm.
Okay, we got sound, but
You understand that you are not a United States citizen.
we got sound, but
Conviction will affect your immigration status and will result in deportation, just like a conviction at a trial would, and that this is true regardless of any advice by your attorney or anyone else. Are you a U.S. citizen?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that there may be other adverse or unfavorable consequences as a result of this guilty plea conviction?
Yes.
Just as there would be from a conviction following a trial.
Yes, ma'am.
For example, your guilty plea may affect your right to vote, your right to hold public office, your right to serve on a jury, your right to obtain a passport, your right to receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or the ability to obtain employment. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty to a felony, if you use, receive, possess, or transport a firearm, or use a firearm in a crime, you will be guilty of a felony which may carry a sentence of 1 to 15 years in prison?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you waive any and all offenses, including any mental health offenses, by entering a plea of guilty?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that if you went to trial, you have the right to a trial by jury, the right to see, hear, and confront witnesses called to testify against you, and the right to testify to remain silent and not incriminate yourself?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that by pleading guilty, you are giving up the following rights, and after each right, I want you to answer if you understand that. Okay?
Yes.
First, the right to a trial by jury.
Yes.
Next, the right to remain silent and not incriminate yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
The right counsel hired by you or to court-appointed counsel if you cannot afford an attorney at the trial of your case.
Yes, ma'am.
The right to the presumption of innocence.
Yes, ma'am.
The right to testify on your own behalf and to present other evidence.
Yes, ma'am.
The right is your decision to waive these rights and use a guilty plea because you're found guilty.
Yes, ma'am.
With respect to indictment 22 SC 183-572, where you're charged with count 1, conspiracy to violate the Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act. Count 47, conspiracy to commit a crime. Count 48, participation in criminal street gang activity. And count 55, conspiracy to commit a crime. How do you plead, guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Is this guilty plea freely and voluntarily given with a full knowledge of the charge against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you have only a limited right to appeal this guilty plea conviction?
Yes, ma'am.
Do you understand that you have 4 years from today's date for the felony charges to file a habeas corpus petition challenging the voluntariness of this guilty plea?
Yes, ma'am.
And Your Honor, if this case were to go to trial, the state would expect to show and prove that between January 24th of 2013 and May 8th of 2022, that the enterprise did unlawfully conspire to acquire and maintain and control of the United States currency and other personal property through a pattern of racketeering activity. And also, while members were associated with the enterprise, did unlawfully conspire to conduct and participate in directly in racketeering activity as described in our indictment, Your Honor. Associates of the enterprise, YSL or Young Slime Line, they did conspire to associate together with others for the common purposes of illegally obtaining money and property through a pattern of racketeering activity and conducting and participating in the enterprise through a pattern of racketeering activity. And in furtherance of that conspiracy, the defendants engaged in the activities enumerated within our indictment. Some of the objectives, Your Honor, include and are limited to preserving, protecting, and enhancing the reputation, power, and territory of the enterprise through acts of racketeering activity, including murder, assault, and threats of violence. Also preserving, protecting, and enhancing the reputation, power, and territory of the enterprise by the posting of messages, images, videos, and songs demonstrating an allegiance to the enterprise and a willingness to engage in violence on its behalf. And those are just some of the ways in which they try to further the enterprise. Your Honor, the state would expect to show that this YSL started in the late 2012 in the Cleveland Avenue area of Atlanta, Georgia, and that some of the founders of this enterprise was Jeffrey Williams, also known as Young Thug, also known as Slime, Walter Murphy, also known as DK, and Trotavia Stevens, also known as Tick, and also known as Slug. That this group uses a variety of identifiers, including colors, clothing, tattoos, and hand signs, as well as verbal and written identifiers. And Your Honor, specifically, how Mr. Sullivan will contribute to this enterprise is that we had a number of Instagram postings of Mr. Sullivan. The first being, Your Honor, Mr. Sullivan was incarcerated, I believe between 2014 and 2017. Upon his coming home from prison, we have a picture of him in that video. Excuse me, it was a video. In that video is one of the co-defendants, Jeffrey Williams, and they posted this on social media, and the tag of that was original slime shit, and that was posted and tagged by this defendant, who's also known as Obama. We also have some imagery, Your Honor, also posted on social media with this defendant wearing red clothing with, on that clothing, it has MAXA, which is a play on MAGA, which is Make America Slime Again. And then he also has several tattoos identifying YSL on his body, Your Honor. We also have a couple other postings of this defendant with other members of YSL posted on the internet. Specifically, two of the crimes that he was charged with, Your Honor, in this indictment are actually two telephone calls of individuals who were both housed at the Fulton County Jail. The first phone call was on February 22nd, 2022, Your Honor. And this is a phone call by one of the co-defendants, Christian Eppinger. That individual called this defendant asking permission from a person known as Slime, whether or not he would have permission to harm Wyatt Benalucci, also known as Rashard Bennett. Your Honor, that phone call came after Mr. Bennett had already been attacked by other members of the YSL gang in the jail. Your Honor, although Mr. Spellman did take the phone call and agreed on the phone, it does not appear that that ever took place. Nothing happened to Mr. Bennett subsequent to that phone call. Second, Your Honor, we have a phone call on April 7th, 2022, where another co-defendant by the name of Cordarius Dorsey also called Mr. Sumlin on a jail call and asked Mr. Sumlin to either rob.
Here's one thing you need to do before you start your holiday shopping. Don't spend another dime on Amazon until you watch this first.
Watch this. I can show you how to
Or kill an individual known as Head. Mr. Dorsey provided Mr. Sumlin with the phone number to kind of set up an armed robbery and whatever would happen after that armed robbery. We later found through investigation that Head was an individual by the name of Harold Bennett. What we learned is there was nothing that happened to Mr. Bennett afterwards. So there was this agreement on the telephone. However, it does not appear that anything happened subsequent to those two telephone calls. Your Honor, those things, the social media posts, in addition to the those two phone calls, is how Mr. Sumlin has furthered the enterprise in this case, and that's what the state would have expected to prove in this case we're going to trial.
All right, thank you, Ms. Hilton. Mr. Hoover, anything on behalf of your client?
No, Your Honor, we just.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, before signing this indictment, did you have the opportunity to fully discuss all of the facts and circumstances therein with your attorney, Mr. Hoover, to your satisfaction?
Yes, sir.
Is there anything about the indictment you wish to ask me or ask any questions about?
No, sir.
All right. I'll note the indictment's been signed and the plea has been entered. Mr. Sumlin, based upon the responses that you've given during the court's inquiry, I find that your guilty plea is freely and voluntarily entered. I find a factual basis for your plea. I'm going to accept your plea as tendered and it's negotiated. As it pertains to you in count one, that's conspiracy to violate the Racketeering Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act. This court will sentence you to 15 years to serve on probation, subject to the special conditions that have been set forth on the record already. in terms of your plea, and I'll go over some of those with you in just a minute. As it pertains to count 47, conspiracy to commit a crime, murder, this court will sentence you to 15 years to serve on probation subject to special conditions. Count 48 is participation in criminal street gang activity, YSL. This court will sentence you to 15 years to serve on probation subject to the special conditions already set forth. And on count 55, as it pertains to conspiracy.
Just 15 years on probation?
This court will also sentence you to 15 years to serve probation subject to the special conditions therein. All counts 1, 47, 48, and 55 will run concurrently to you. That means that concurrent means they run at the same time, okay?
Yes, sir.
All right. As part of your this particular plea in this particular case, you understand that you need to abide in full by each of the terms of your negotiated agreement between you and the state. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
You also understand if you fail to do so, that may constitute a violation of your agreement.
Yes, sir.
You also agree that you'll testify truthfully about any and all matters in regards to this case if you are further asked in any further judicial proceeding stemming from the facts and circumstances in this indictment. However, you reserve your right to assert your Fifth Amendment privilege against self-incrimination. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. You also agree to testify as to the acknowledgments that you have made within the terms of the plea agreement. Is that correct?
Yes,
the factual acknowledgments.
Yes,
right?
sir.
Okay, all right. And then also you agree not to possess any guns during the term of your sentence unless your rights to do so have been restored. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
You also understand and agree that you shall not commit any criminal acts. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
You wouldn't be able to do that as part of the general conditions of probation anyways, right? So, okay, all right. Additional special conditions of your probation are as follows: that you'll be subject to a curfew from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. unless you're otherwise working in school. Situation like yours is that it's for two reasons. One, to protect you and those you better ensure that you'll complete your probation without a hitch. It is empirically established that a lot of crime occurs between about 11 and 4 in the morning. So if you're at home, you got family, you got other things that you are responsible for, it's less likely that something may happen. Meaning I'm not saying that there's no guarantee somebody won't come to your house and knock on your door and try and offer you harm, but it's less likely that will happen because you won't be in the street. Now, the other thing is if you work the second shift, third shift, or say, for example, you got a small child or your parents or your mother gets sick, you can certainly go and see about them. You can certainly take your child to urgent care, whatever. You can certainly pick up somebody from the airport if that becomes necessary. But you can't be at some other place if probation kind of finds you at 2 o'clock in the morning and you're at a strip club, you're gonna have some problems. You understand me?
Yes, sir.
All right. See the difference between the two?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Just want to make sure you understand that. Things that make common sense won't violate your terms of your probation. And Ms. Purdy, my probation officer, will, and whoever it is that's assigned as your probation officer, as long as you let them know you're working or whatever else, that, like I said, you get a job second or third shift, they'll just need to know that so that if they're trying to check up on you, that you'll be good. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then also for the pendency of this case, you can't have any contact with anybody else in this indictment. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. That would also go along with, as Ms. Purdy's going to tell you, you can't be associated with anybody else with a felony record. So that's why you couldn't necessarily have any contact with anybody. There's probably a few people on this who have had some prior contact with the law in terms of felony convictions. Okay, so don't have anything to do with anybody in this particular indictment. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. The terms of your probation may be suspended after 5 years, provided you don't violate the terms of the agreement and you violate no laws. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Your probation may terminate after so that's suspended, the first part. Your probation may terminate after 10 years, provided you don't violate any terms and conditions of this agreement and violate any laws. Do you understand that?
Yes, sir.
All right. Sir, do you have any questions about your sentence?
No, sir.
Counsels, that is Mr. Hoover or